How to leave your 100k job and become a property investor. Welcome back to the Investors Corner this week, sponsored by Survey Network. Thanks very much, chaps, for your support. They're recruiting now, so if you are a chartered surveyor or an ASOC RIC surveyor, they're looking for self-employed surveyors. So get in contact with Luke Masters if you want to chat. There's my plug. Done. Right. Let's get into it. How to leave your 100k job and become a property investor. Seen a few courses at Heathrow Airport about this, so we're going to get involved in it as well. We're not going to charge a penny. Ian says yes, I say no. That's what happened straight outside the studio. Andy's waiting because he's about to quit his 100k job to become a property investor. If this works, essentially.
Pre-podcast controversy. You see, this is why you brought me back in. I've had a couple of weeks out. You needed a row, so you brought me back in. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine to be that guy. I've got my shorts on and I'm ready to attack. No, well, I mean, look, can it be done? It's the thing that obviously people are looking at thinking, I would love to be in a position where I don't have to go and do my day-to-day 9 till 5 job. Let's talk about being a 100k earner first and foremost in the UK. Not everyone is. It's right at the top percentage of earners in the UK. It's becoming more frequent with the way that wages are going. What typically I would describe a 100k earner as is something around senior management within a medium to large size business, probably under a shed load of stress for that role. It's like a firefighting role typically, or an account management role.
Politics and HR. I'm having PTSD as you're saying it.
I've been there. If there was if we were going to use an edit with a beep button, I'd swear, because it's X. But what you also find is you're actually very much at risk of redundancy, because typically you're in a role which is replaceable. You have a person below you that could step into that role and not do it to the same standard, but do it to 60% of the standard for 50% of the cost, which means if economically or financially that business takes a little turn, you're the first on the chopping sheet. So it's something to look at, because I think when you get to that level, if you're shrewd with your savings and you earn 100 grand for 3 or 4 years, you really should be in a position where you've got a decent chunk of cash saved. As long as you're not living the life of Riley, like, you know, old DiCaprio on the yacht in The Wolf of Wall Street, flicking dollar signs at the coppers.
He was doing more than 100 grand a year.
Oh yeah. But that's the picture I'm painting. We wouldn't mind being a pound behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, there's two,
and
levels.
probably in some of his morning meetings as well.
You can imagine. There's 2 levels of 100k earner, isn't it? There's people who have got an AMG on the drive, and spending 110, and there's the sensible one, and you're advocating having to be sensible, because 100k works out to £68,500 a year, which is £5,700 a month net income. So that's what we're looking to replace. Is £5,700, so you can continue your lifestyle. Can you do it with £100,000 starting capital? So you're arguing you can, in 4 to 5 years, you can save 100 grand if you earn £100,000 a year. I agree with you. You can just take the AMG off the drive, and you're pretty much there. Frankly, the amount of cost. Morning, Neil. Saw you were in QuickFit the other day. If you're listening, if you're still in QuickFit, that's where you start. So let's say you can cobble together 100k of starting capital to start your property business. You've got to start off by firstly looking at what your plan is and how you're going to register, how you're going to do that. And Andy, big stat this week, the most voluminous type of company registration through Companies House is SPV, property vehicle companies. So it's all the rage. Everyone's doing it. We'll assume that doing this in a company structure is the most efficient way of doing it, because you can loan your company that 100 grand, no tax on it, and you can pull that money back out tax free when the whole thing starts cash flowing. So we're going to put it in a company structure, and we're going to go are we going to go? We're going to go buy to let, I presume, rather than the whole sort of dodgy rent to rent situation.
Yeah.
I'll go straight buy to let, haven't you? It's the easiest one to start off with, anyway.
Yeah, we need to own it.
As we've got capital. If we had no capital, I get why people do this kind of rent to rent thing. It's not really my bag, to be honest. And you're both looking at me like it's not yours either.
No,
so
definitely not.
I think we want to own the assets. You know, we're not just trying to replace our $6,000 a month take home to round it up, but we're actually trying to be in a position where we've got a retirement asset as well, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
So, strategy.
Well, first of all, you've got to save that cash. So I think if you're earning 5-7, if you're taking home 5-7 and you've got zero in your bank account from day one, which everyone's going to have a bit of something, but let's say you've got zero, then I just worked it out that it's just under 5 years of saving the 1,700. So just slicing that off the top.
Go down to 4K.
Living on 4K, saving 1,700, and it's just under 5 years. You know? So let's say that's where we've got to. We've done that. You've
gone from 2 holidays to 1 holiday, and you've gone from an AMG to a Ford Focus, and you've smashed it out. Fair play.
You're living in all the rooms in your house rather than 3 of them that you haven't seen for the last month because you didn't really need them, because you were just keeping up with the Joneses, which everyone in our generation is guilty of doing. You know, I've got 2 of them in my house that I don't think I've set foot in probably this year. Because you don't need them really, but
you still got the green wall that really pleased your wife.
No, that was decorated. Now it's back to her dressing room. I do joke that my wife has 3 bedrooms because she's almost moved her clothes into the 2 spare rooms. But anyway, we digress. So we've saved the money. We've got 100 grand. The question is, can we turn that 100 grand into 6 grand a month's worth of take home? We all know the answer is yes, but is it realistic in terms of the timescale of doing it? You know, is it going to take us 25 years, or can we do it in 6 years? That we probably won't ever get to an answer on this podcast because everyone's different. For example, I've refurbed and sold 12 properties in my life, and each time I've done a refurb, I've actively taught myself a new skill from a cost-saving exercise. So I can fit wood flooring, I can decorate a house, I can do basic level plastering, I can fit a kitchen, I can't cut the worktops, I can tile, I can do the garden from a landscaping perspective, I can do block paved driveway if I need to. So I've got to that point where I can do that. Not everyone is going to be in the position where they've got the DIY skills to save the thousands of pounds on the refurb, but you might have an uncle or a dad or a father-in-law or a brother that's in the trades that you can pull. And I think if you are going to do this, the first thing you need to look at is, who are my people I can rely on? Because if you're going to try and do it on your own and pay for it, you're going to find it really difficult to do. If you're going to pay full rate on everything, that 100 grand is going to deplete very, very quickly.
100% agree. And this is where I guess the pace, because everyone can make money out of property over a long period. I have none of those skills, no dad and no one in the trades to rely on. So I'm purely reliant on...
Well, you've got Ian now, he can do
Well, apparently, yeah. I mean, I've got a half-built extension at the back of my house, and plaster's cost unbelievable amount of money.
I wouldn't say I can plaster. I can do basic level plaster.
Dabbing, anything. I'm good. You carry the stuff from the garage in. We're all there. That's where, this is where you're gonna see whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because I rely on building capital, then investing it, then yes, you have to spend book rate on anything that happens. And I've sold properties because we've come down to the point where everything inside them is 15 years old, and I'm staring down the barrel of, do I put 15 to 20k into it, or do I just check out now? And it's easier for me to check out. Whereas someone else can take 2 weeks off work, whip the bathrooms out and do it for... Well, I don't know what, because it's costing me 15 to 20k.
That's where you've got the network, like Ian said. You know, if you've got a dad that doesn't work and he's got a bit of free time and knows how to do those things, then obviously you can get around there sooner rather than later to do all that stuff, or friends, family, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, the first property, you know, if I was going to do it, the first property that I would get would be basic level. I wouldn't go into a property that completely needs to be refurbed, especially when I've just stepped foot into property investing, because for me, I'll be like, don't really know how it works. It's my first time in it. I'm not going to go into something that don't know too much about completely refurbing it. So it'd just be basic level refurb. You know, it might need a new kitchen, might need a new bathroom. Well, they're easy to source. You just go to Wix, B&Q, or wherever, and get a cheap modern one. And
DIY kitchens is all the rage, according to my wife. 3 weeks after we ordered a kitchen from somewhere else.
I mean,
Tells you after the event. Yeah.
I've done it in a 3-bed terrace where you kind of, you look at it. I had a 3-bed in Wild Ridings that actually I did the refurb with my mum, funnily enough. She was retired and she just wanted to spend a bit of time with me and have something to work on. So she was doing, you know, sort of the general decorating. She was doing a bit of the glossing and stuff like that. But we looked at the kitchen and we went, do you know what? The carcass of the kitchen, be it 25, 30 years old, was all right. I mean, it's effectively like a thin calyx unit, isn't it? Most kitchen carcasses. And all we did was we just bought the worktops, you know, some nice kind of grey effect worktops. And we decorated the doors, replaced the handles. It looked like a brand new kitchen. Obviously the tiling as well, the splashback, replaced the tiling. We did that whole kitchen for less than £1,000. At the time, it was probably less than 500 quid. But the kitchen was white, shiny and grey. You know, white clean tiles, nice grey worktop, and kind of brushed steel handles. You know, the flooring was the same, just basic lino grey wood effect flooring. It looked lovely for a tenant to move into. You know, it's a kitchen that looked brand new. My mum cleaned all the insides of the worktops, the kitchen carcass out. And, you know, we did that for a couple hundred quid. You could spend upwards of 50 grand on the same size kitchen if you wanted to. So, you know, are you doing it for 1% and doing the elbow grease, or are you doing it for full capacity and never making the money back? I'm never going to live in that property. So the goal was not to do it to the standard that I wanted it to be. So these are really important decisions. But if you are a 100K salary earner, what have you also got in your life that you're going to need to sacrifice? So, you know, do you have kids on the weekend that have got birthday parties all day long on Saturdays that you're running around, and then on Sundays you're doing gymnastics and football, and you don't have any weekends? Because if you don't have any weekends, you probably can't do this.
Yeah.
No.
Because you're going to need to sacrifice. And, you know, and a lot of those properties that I've done, I've finished work at 7 o'clock at the time, and I've been there till 9.
Oh, God, do you remember that?
Yeah, it's horrible. 7 o'clock, straight
8
to the...
till 7, like 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And still, yeah.
Well, then going there and putting your painting stuff on and working until 9:30, you know, do it. But you have to make that sacrifice.
I think that's where people, I don't know how many, I'd love to know how many people are still kind of doing that kind of absolute grind of doing a job and then getting some food on the way home and then going and do another job. You know, you've got part of your business plan. We've got the business plan written up here. Part of the biggest part of the business plan that we had when we started our first business was with the borderline written agreement with our wives that we're going to disappear for 3 years.
Yeah, and our friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my friends are like, oh look, it's you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're back in the world, are you?
Back. Yeah. But it is a case of that, and I'll be honest, I don't think I could have done that when I had kids. The house I live in at the moment, I hadn't planned to do any of the refurbishment work on it. It just coincided that between exchange and completion, the business I'd been at for 16 years decided to make me redundant. That was pleasant, which then meant I actually had a load of time on my hands because I was effectively being paid through this redundancy process. So I thought, well, rather than getting decorators and stuff in, I don't want to do it, but I know how to do it. So I just went full time as a tradie on my house and ended up just, you know, saving myself about 20 grand on the refit by doing a lot of it myself. But other than that, if I had to do it now, I'd find it really difficult because I don't have the time. So it's also judging at what point in your life you want to make that decision. Do you still have the grind? Because this is ultimately a side hustle with a goal of becoming the full time gig.
So you have to accept you're going to be doing 2 jobs.
Yes, absolutely.
For a good couple of years here.
Yeah.
And I see in fairness, I'm a geek, so I do watch like George Clark and those sorts of programs. Where I saw one the other week where a guy basically built a house with his bare hands for about 60 grand. George Clark's head fell off. Like, he could not believe how this guy had done it. And I mean, the guy aged about 8 years in
It's going to be
the
stressful.
point of doing it, because he was working full time as a tradie, and then overnight in his house basically for a full year. Like, it could have killed him, but he did it. He built this detached house for about 60k. It's unreal. Like,
How long did it take him?
well over a year, because you can't be doing noisy stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning, can you? But so financial plan. If we're buying a 200k buy to let as our first property, and we've got £100,000 worth of startup capital, you're spending at least 70,000 on that buy to let in 50k deposit, fees, stamp duty, some refurb money, on the basis that you're going to bend your back. Because I'm out at financial planning here, because I can't bend my back. I've got an appointment on the 28th with the surgeon. Maybe it'll be different.
You're not plastering the ceilings.
No, absolutely.
You're not decorating
no
the
way.
ceilings either.
You'll find me having a spasm on the top of a ladder. That will be it.
I'll throw that out there. Painting ceilings is horrible, especially if it's back to plaster. It's absolutely horrible. But yeah, I think the strategy is the next step. So let's assume you've got all of those things. You've got the stepdad that can do the electrician work. You've got the builder that can help you with a little bit of the day-to-day kind of little bits where effectively they just know how to do it, and they've got the tools that you haven't got.
Unashamedly pulling in favours.
They got 11 grand's worth of DeWalt stuff in their garage that you just don't have.
I've got a Ryobi power drill.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble. That drill bit's not lasting 5 minutes. But we get to that point where you've got that set up, you've got this 100 grand. Then it really comes down to, and this is where people, I think, probably have to step out of the comfort of their own location, and you have to start looking a little bit further afield, because you've only got 100 grand to play with, which means you need to be looking at properties. If you're looking at Rightmove, you need to be looking at properties around the 200 to 220 sort of mark and below. So we're going into Rightmove and we're searching from like 125 to 225, and that's the bracket where you need to sit. And what we're ideally looking for is a 150 probate, refurb, tenants wrecked it, maybe it's something that the bank's taken back off someone, and you're kind of looking at those hotspot locations and saying, right, can I find that 150 house that I know if I put the deposit down on it, let's say I put 50 grand down on it, I put the costings down on it, I've got solicitor fees, mortgage fees, blah, 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 blah. And then I've got 25 grand to play with on refurb in this place. Is that going to be worth 200 grand plus afterwards? And if you find those, and just when we sat down, I just, for no reason whatsoever, I typed in Southampton.
He's bought a house, hasn't he?
And I found the house we're going to buy.
You just typed in Southampton.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe because they're the worst team in the Premier League, and I just went, they must have a house for 150. I don't know where
Southampton listeners.
Southampton, to be fair, it's compared to where we are, is cheap.
The logic was,
and it's got about 3 universities and isn't it?
That was the logic. It's cheap. Yeah. It's easy to get to from where we are.
Yeah.
It's got the universities. It's got the hospitals. It's got the capacity to grow. It's in the south rather than in the north. So I just looked at it and thought, right, what we're playing with here.
Ian doesn't get a nosebleed if he drives south. It's all right.
Yeah. There's that line north of what? Winter is coming. The Game of Thrones sits above. That's enough for me. And we got a 150 2-bed semi, needs gutting, 2 up, 2 down, downstairs loo, upstairs bathroom, total refurb project. You guys can see that there. Yeah. But the carcass of the old sort of 1930s place is ready to go. Something like that is what we're looking at here. And that for us is just over an hour's drive, maybe less if you're really speeding and getting a couple of points. And can you do that for 25 grand? only if you do it
Your set.
Yeah.
my way.
Yeah.
You can't do it if you're
100%.
doing it the lazy way.
Because realistically, if you put 50 grand deposit, loads of money into stamp duty and this, that, and the other, and money into your refurb, you're going to want a high percentage return on that investment, not on the total price of the house, but you've just stuck 90 grand into this house in Southampton. You're going to want the thick end of 90 grand back, right? I don't know what the percentage is that you're gonna go for, but if you're going to be working till 6 o'clock, then hitting the M3, M27, doing a load of work, sleeping over in a sleeping bag, having a cold shower in the morning, driving back up the M3 in the morning to get to the office, or blagging a work from home. I mean, that maybe that's the answer. Do you work from home?
I think also what people have. This is an important part of the strategy. And I don't know what they teach in Heathrow at the back of the room nonsense, but this is the logic of someone that's been in property for sort of 21 years and is quite disciplined as an individual. We've now got 2 years of a fixed term. So we've got 2 years of a fixed term. Don't forget, in that 2 years, you don't change your £1,700 saving. So although you had 100 grand at the start, we're now 1,700 times 24 up on our savings because we keep that going. So we've got 40 grand in the pot here. So we're now in that position where we've got another 40 grand of personal income we've saved, which is great. So we've got our 40 grand saved, but now we've also got 2 years worth of the cash that we were making on the rent. And let's just assume that the profit margin that we've made on the rent is 500 quid.
500 quid, yeah.
So that's fair in that sort of scenario.
Gross, 500 quid gross.
So
if not a lot of maintenance, because you've obviously done the work properly.
Yeah. So we've got 52 grand. We've now got 52 grand in cash, and we're in a position where we've got the ability to refinance and pull it out. So if we pull another 50 grand out of it, because that's the equity.
I'm going to want 50 grand's worth of return.
Yeah, we've
just for the not just for the 2 years, because you can't guarantee what the property value will go up with the market. Say it goes up an average of 3% a year, you're going to get 12 grand just equity rise. But I'm going to want 50k out of it, because just for the sheer effort that I've put in, that no one else is willing to do at that point. So you're back to your 100 grand.
We're back to 100 grand. So in 2 years' time, we've got a cash flowing £500 profit, and we've got 100 grand back. So even if we just did the rinse and repeat version of that, we're going to be in the position every 2 years where we're adding 500 quid.
That's it.
Worst case scenario, right? We've looked at it and we said that's achievable, and that means that we can get to our 6 year, we can get to our 6 grand a month kind of setup within, what's that, 12 years if we were doing it that way?
Yeah.
So that's the worst. That's the worst case
organically.
Scenario. And we're doing it in the way that we're doing it with that sort of style. And for me, I would look at that and go, right, I'm 28. I've got no kids at that point, or I'm in that position where I've got to that point. That means when I turn 40, I should be in a position where I can become a property investor full time. But along the way, things increase, your skill set increases, your knowledge, your ability to acquire different properties. We might look at the next one and go, right, we've done the safe bet. The next thing we're going to do is, now we're feeling a bit more comfortable, is that 2 up, 2 down in Southampton after 2 years. I am going to refinance it, but because I know there's a heavy flow of students in there, I'm going to turn the 2 reception rooms downstairs into bedrooms and turn it into a 4-bed HMO version for student. That might increase my profit on that to £1,200.
Yeah.
And then I might do the same thing down the road. So now I've gone from my £500 to 2.5 grand a month just on one strategy within 4 years. So I've actually I've reduced the timescale of getting to there to 7 years if I did it in that play. So it's just a case of making sure that the foundations of what you're looking to do are right. And that means favours, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it means discipline on what you're saving. And it means you've got to stick to the plan. Because if you deviate and start living DiCaprio style Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle at 32 years old, or something happens in your life, you're going to have the adaptability to pivot.
If you're $100,000 earner and ICOS are all over your Facebook timeline with their sponsored ads, you got to block it.
Yeah.
That's because it's really nice.
Yeah. What we haven't factored in is equity growth, because if we're now 6 years down the line, well, that means we've now had an opportunity with our first property in Southampton on 3 occasions to refinance. Now, in a 6-year window, we don't know what prices are going to do, but what we do know is they will have gone up in that 6 years. So that's
over 6 years.
Over 6 years, we would expect that. So
I would say like once in like the last 150 years, it hasn't gone over 6 years.
Yeah.
Like,
and let's say we've left it, and now we're 10 years in. In 10 years, we know we will have. And in that 10-year window, we might have 5 properties under our belt if we're following that process. And let's just say we've refurbed them at market value of the original market value with no equity growth whatsoever. Well, if we're in a position where we've got £1.25 million worth of property in the 5 properties, roughly speaking, hopefully it's a little bit more, but let's say it's around that. If the prices over that period of time have collectively gone up by 200 grand's worth of equity, we're also now in that position where we can pull 200 grand out in a slightly different kind of turn of events to what the original plan was, just because of natural growth. And that might be enough in that 10-year window to take it from 12 years to actually I can exit now and I can do 2 more with the 200 grand. And we're now in a position where we can leave the 100 grand job. And that's how it can be done. I don't know what they teach at Heathrow, but if they say you can leave your job in 2 years' time and you're ready to rock and roll, pay 1,500 quid for the accelerator course and we'll teach you how, that's not happening. That's not the way to do it, I don't think. It's not going to work. But that in my head kind of can work for someone. And it would be great to hear what people think and say. And it's only going to work for the people that have got the favours, the resources and the discipline to do it. And they can put a pause maybe on their lifestyle until they get to that 200 grand pull out in year 10 where you go absolutely bonkers. Have the best.
Well, that's the whole world changes when you've got cash, right? Absolutely. And you can just literally, you can walk into auctions, you can play power plates, you can flip stuff, you can do it. If you've got a revolving cash there of £250,000, you don't have that kind of pressure to be buying financed and turning things around and doing this, that and the other, when you can just pull out equity against your portfolio. Then the world's totally different. And that's where people, I think, have the kind of missing part. They're like, look at that property investor. He's like, where's he gotten from 0 to there? He must have started with £1 million. He probably didn't. He probably started with a W Reg van, and some scruffy clothes, and just bootstrapped himself to get to that point. Rather than, he did a load of rent to rents and this, that and the other, and yada 10 grand course, blah blah blah. He's one of my mentees, etc. You just get better over time. I mean, I started in my early 20s, and my goal was to get the nice family house. So I was buying these because I was in the industry, refurbing them and then selling them. So I'd refurb them, then I'd rent them for 18 months and then I'd sell them. Now that was my way of, in my head, making 30, 40, 50 making
grand
a second
pop.
salary, isn't it? Yeah.
But it was the wrong thing to do. I just didn't know at the time because I was naive and I was so focused on getting the family house and getting the cash out. But had I have kept those properties, maybe I wouldn't have bought the house I'm in now as quickly as I bought it. But what I would have is I'd probably have about £1 million worth of equity sat there in these properties, because the things that I was selling for 175 are now worth 375. And I still made 50 grand on that.
Yeah, you would. Because it's you're buzzing with hitting that 50 grand rather than I don't think any of us believe that houses in Bracknell would be worth 375. I just don't believe that we believed it, to be honest. Every year I used to come back on January the 1st and be like, God, 3-bed in that estate for 160, they're taking the piss.
Yeah.
Like, and then by the end of the year it's 180, and then it's 225, and then it's 275, and it just went on, and it just rolls on relentlessly. There is no...
We didn't know it would happen that way. We didn't know that it would do that.
That also shows that, you know, Bracknell's had a lot of money ploughed into it with sort of regeneration of town centre, other new housing estates going up around it as well.
Same stuff as we always rattle on about, isn't it?
You can spot those areas where a lot of money's going into it. You know, you mentioned last year about Peterborough and all that money going into Peterborough. There's Trafford City now where they're spending £1.6 billion on, you know, investment into that local area. So it's like, if you could identify things like that where you get in early, obviously all of that money goes in, the house prices are just going to go up and up and up and up, aren't they? Which is what obviously we've seen in Bracknell. We've seen it in Wokingham as well. You know, I bought my 3-bed semi-detached property, was it 2.5 years ago, bought it for 430, and now it's worth 520. So it's gone up by nearly 90k in 2.5 years.
If you've got 5 of them, you're getting 5 times richer than the normal man.
Exactly.
If you've got 1 of them, you're getting no richer. The bank's doing well out of you, really. Like, that's the...
If you can keep them, that's the win. And when you've got that plan and you listen to a podcast like this and you get that understanding, if you're disciplined with it, I wasn't disciplined with it. I was ill-disciplined and naive at a young age, but I have been to Vegas 7 times. I've had quite a good time. I've only just...
That's not the end of the world, I suppose.
Yeah, I did have quite a good time. So
you got the memories from it, yeah?
Experiences.
All the blackouts.
So I remember the last one. Not sure I remember the first one. But yeah, I think it's a good episode for people to listen to. We'd love some interaction on it as well. You know, is there anyone out there that's got that plan, that's got that thought process? Is there someone that wants to come on and kind of share what they're in the middle of doing? We had Milesh on that's done it from... He did it from a health reason point of view. He had a real purpose and passion behind why. That was great. So if there's people out there that want to kind of jump on and talk about it, let's do it. Let's get a listener on as a guest. That would be amazing. And thanks for tuning in and listening all the way to the end of this one. And thanks for talking it through, chaps. It's been a good episode.
It's been good.
We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. And again, thanks to Survey Network for sponsoring this podcast. If you need a survey, you are a property investor on your commercial property or residential, then those guys are the best in the business. They'll be happy to help. See you soon.